Did you draw that?
Depends, what do you see?
See a city, but it doesn't look like this one.
It's not.
Then where is it?
Somewhere people actually look at each other.
You're wasting this on cardboard.
Am I?
That kind of detail, that perspective, you should be in a gallery.
I am.
This is a sidewalk.
And you stopped, didn't you?
How much?
For what? $5. You're serious? Depends, are you?
You could get more.
Maybe.
Then why don't you?
Because the moment I do, people stop seeing it.
What do you mean?
They stop looking and start valuing.
I'll take it.
Then look at it before you pay.
This shouldn't be here.
Neither should I.
There are people the world notices instantly, and then there are people the world walks past every single day, not because they have nothing to offer, but because they exist in places we've trained ourselves not to see. On a narrow stretch of pavement between a convenience store and a rusted street pole, he's Saturday, not begging, not calling out, not asking for anything, just drawing. The ground around him was scattered with cardboard, creased, stained, softened by rain and time. Most of it had once carried something valuable: food, packages, products people were willing to pay for, but now it was nothing, and somehow that nothing had become his canvas. His hands moved slowly, but with precision that felt almost unnatural. Every stroke of charcoal carried intention. Every line had weight. He didn't sketch randomly, he built. Perspective emerged where there was once emptiness. Light appeared where there was only dull brown surface. Emotion formed in places no one expected to feel anything. A city unfolded on that pizza box, but not the one around him. This one was alive, breathing, connected. People in his drawings looked at each other, touched, paused. Everything the real world seemed to rush past existed fully inside those fragile lines. And still, people walked by. Some slowed down slightly, just enough to register that something was happening, but not enough to engage, because the human mind categorizes quickly: homeless, street, ignore, move on. And just like that, genius remained invisible until someone broke the pattern. $5. That was the exchange, simple, almost meaningless. But what changed wasn't the money. It was the moment, because for the first time, someone didn't just look, they saw. And once something is seen, truly seen, it can never return to being invisible again. That single decision, that small interruption, would set something in motion that no one, not even him, could have predicted. Because sometimes, it only takes one person to change where the world decides to look. The internet doesn't search for truth. It searches for attention. Moments that disrupt scrolling, images that interrupt routine, stories that make people stop, even if just for a second longer than usual. And on that day, it found him, not through planning, not through strategy, but through curiosity. A passing creator, moving through the same street everyone else had walked past, stopped. There was no grand realization at first, no instant understanding of what they had discovered, just a pause, a slight lean forward, a moment of confusion. Because something didn't match. The environment said one thing, the art said another, and when those two realities collide, people pay attention. The phone came out almost instinctively. Camera on. Recording. Wait, hold on. The voice behind the camera wasn't polished, wasn't scripted, but it was real. And that authenticity carried something no production ever could. The video captured everything as it was: the worn clothes, the quiet focus, the cardboard, and then the drawing. The camera moved closer, zoomed in, shook slightly as the person behind it realized this wasn't normal. This wasn't something you just pass by. And that realization, that shift in energy, transferred through the screen. Within minutes of being uploaded, the video began to move, not slowly, not gradually, rapidly. Shares multiplied, comments flooded in. People tagged others. Have you seen this? Who is this guy? This is insane. The algorithm noticed, because engagement is its language, and this was loud. Within hours, the numbers stopped feeling real. Thousands, then hundreds of thousands, then millions. And somewhere between those numbers, the narrative changed. He was no longer invisible. He became a mystery, a question waiting for an answer. News outlets picked it up, blogs reposted it, influencers reacted to it, but no one knew where he was, because while the world was searching digitally, he remained physically unchanged, still in the same place, still doing the same thing, still unaware that his life had already begun to shift. There is something profoundly powerful about that moment, when the world knows your name before you do. They found him 3 days later, not because he moved, but because the world finally came to where he had always been. Cameras arrived first, large ones, professional ones, the kind that signal importance. People followed, crowds formed, and suddenly, the space that had once been ignored became the center of attention. At first, he didn't understand. The questions came fast, too fast. How long have you been doing this? Did you know you're viral? Your video has over 50 million views. How do you feel? He didn't answer immediately, not because he didn't want to, but because the language didn't match his reality. Views, followers, virality. These were not things he had lived with, so he responded the only way he knew how. He kept drawing, because that was the only part of this world that still made sense. Eventually, someone showed him a phone screen, his own hands moving across cardboard, his own face, focused, distant, millions watching. For a long moment, he said nothing. Because what do you say when your life is being experienced by people you've never met? The offers came quickly after that. Galleries, sponsors, collectors, each one presenting opportunity in a different form, but also pressure. Because now, there were expectations. Produce, deliver, create on demand. But art doesn't work like that. Not the kind he made. The transition wasn't smooth. The studio they gave him was breathtaking. Glass walls stretched from floor to ceiling, revealing a city that suddenly felt smaller than the one he used to draw. Everything was new, clean, controlled, and yet, something felt off. They handed him brushes, high-end paints, imported materials, tools that cost more than everything he had owned combined. And still, he reached for his charcoal, because comfort does not come from luxury. It comes from familiarity. He sat on the polished floor, not at the easel, and placed cardboard in front of him. Not canvas, cardboard, because for him, that wasn't a limitation. It was identity. Success has a way of rewriting the past, but not everyone lets it. As his work gained value, so did everything connected to it, including the pieces he had created before anyone cared. Pieces he had sold for coins, given away, left behind, now worth more than most people would earn in years. And suddenly, ownership became complicated. People came forward, claiming rights, making arguments, presenting paperwork, because in the world of value, nothing is left unclaimed. The legal battles didn't just question his ownership, they questioned his past, his decisions, his circumstances, as if survival should have followed rules. But poverty doesn't operate within structure. It operates within necessity, and necessity doesn't leave room for contracts. For the first time in his journey, he wasn't just creating, he was defending, not just his work, but his story, because without that story, the art loses its soul, and he refused to let that happen. Money could have ended the story. Comfort could have closed the chapter. But he understood something deeper. He was not the only one. There were others, people with vision, trapped in survival. So he built something. Not a brand, not an empire, a system. Spaces where creators didn't have to choose between survival and expression. Where cardboard was not seen as limitation, but as possibility. They called them vertical villages, places where walls became canvases, where stories became visible, where people who had once been ignored could finally be seen. And when his largest piece was revealed, it wasn't in a hidden alley. It stood tall, in one of the most recognized art institutions in the world, a massive mural, built from layered cardboard, each piece telling a story, each line carrying weight. It wasn't perfect, but it was real, and that made it powerful, because in a world filled with artificial perfection, reality becomes rare, and rare becomes valuable. We often think greatness comes from opportunity, from access, from being in the right place at the right time. But sometimes, greatness begins in the exact opposite conditions, in places where nothing is given, where everything must be created from scratch, where even the canvas is something the world has already discarded, because what truly defines a creator is not what they are given, but what they do with what remains. And maybe, just maybe, the next masterpiece isn't waiting in a gallery or a studio or a perfectly designed space. Maybe it's sitting somewhere right now on a piece of cardboard, waiting for someone to see it. Don't forget to subscribe, like, share, and comment for more stories. Thanks for watching.